Hi, my name is Scott Welch and I'm here to show you Edsby Destinations. Destinations is a new type of software system for K-12 schools and districts. It's the missing link that integrates with your existing district student information system and helps you manage competency-based and outcomes-based assessments and reporting against your local frameworks or standards. As you'll see, unlike other software, it shows teachers, students, and their parents exactly where each student is on their learning journey, where they need to go, and what steps they need to get there. And at the same time, Destinations is also a tool which tracks the conversations, observations, and work product for each student as they attain these destinations. So let's talk about how Destinations helps teachers. I'm going to log in here. First thing you'll notice, I've logged in as Mr. Garcia, and you can see that Mr. Garcia is teaching two different classes, grade 4 math, grade 6 science. This is actually quite important. I'm going to come back to this in a bit. I'm going to go into one of these classes by clicking right here, and now I'm going to go into the destinations by clicking right there. The first thing you'll notice is down the left-hand side, we've got a list of the kids who are in the class, and this is automatically synchronized from your student information system every night, so the teacher doesn't have to do any busy work to set all this up. But the real strength comes along the top. This is a list of the destinations for this particular class, grade 4 mathematics. These are not generated by AI, they're not entered by the teacher. These are the actual frameworks published by your school or state or district. They might be called learning outcomes or objectives in your jurisdiction. And outcomes are associated with a specific academic year, class, and level. Again, grade 4 mathematics. This set of outcomes is precisely how we answer the question, where do we need to go for this class? And notice that we see the entire set of destinations for the entire year. The teacher can show and hide destinations. She can even drag and drop them to change the order of the destinations within the school year. Now, if we click on one of these destinations, we can see the details for that particular outcome or destination. Down at the bottom, we see the standard right out of the framework. Now, the problem is that the standards are often in complex academic language. I mean, I have a degree in mathematics and I have to read this 2 times to figure out what the heck it means. But what we can do is with our class, we can co-create the learning destination in student-friendly language. I can describe and sort 2D shapes by their sides, corners, and lines of symmetry. Oh, actually, I can do that. Okay, and the next thing we see here are the success criteria. I can name shapes like triangles, quadrilaterals, and hexagons. Again, we could co-create these with the students, but we could also load these directly from the framework depending on your jurisdiction and local frameworks. Now, where the rubber really meets the road is when we start looking at the intersection between a student and a particular destination. First, we'll start with outcomes the students have already attained. So if you look at this column right here, we can see that 8 out of the 8 kids in our class have attained this destination. And in fact, we can see they've attained it at slightly different levels. Mia here has met the expectation. Karina is approaching the destination. Seth here exceeded the destination. And our little buddy Santiago is still at beginning. And of course, this is configurable based on your local standards and the way your district works. Now, if we look over here, we can see one that's actually a little bit more interesting. Some of the kids have met this destination, but you'll notice that some of the kids are still progressing. So this kid here and this kid here, they're still progressing. In fact, you can see that Mia has already moved on to the 3rd destination, but most of the kids in the class are still working on that. In fact, some of the kids here haven't even started. The exciting part comes when we click on the intersection between the kid and the destination. So when I click right here, what it's going to do is it's going to show me everything that we know about Mia for this particular destination. This can encompass things like conversation. So here we see that Mia asked a question, Mr. Garcia answered it. Mia did some self-assessment. She said, I can find lines of symmetry, and maybe she showed that to Mr. Garcia in class. It might be an assessment that the whole class does, like a shapes worksheet. It might be some feedback here. You can see here that Mia has captured some evidence of learning and submitted that. So what we call the destination sidebar here contains the conversation, the observations, and the work product for this kid at this destination. And you can see that in the end, what Mr. Garcia did was he triangulated the conversation, observation, and product and said, yes, Mia has met this particular destination. This is incredibly powerful because this is retained for every single kid and becomes part of their record of learning. And managing all of this information is where Destinations really shines. This doesn't look like very much when we're looking at one kid for one particular destination, but you start adding it up. There's 6 or 8 pieces of information here for this particular outcome. A typical class is going to have maybe 10 or 20 outcomes in a typical elementary school. So let's say 10 or 20 outcomes. Let's say 20 outcomes with, say, 6 or 8 pieces of evidence each. That's 100 pieces of evidence for each particular kid. And a typical elementary teacher is going to be teaching, let's say, 20 kids times 5 classes. That's 100. Suddenly you're talking about 10,000 pieces of conversation, observation, work product. And Edsby Destinations takes care of managing all of that for you. Now, Mia here has attained this, but if we were to click on Karina right here, now here you can see there's a little bit of a progress bar there, and that's because she's only attained 3 of the 4 success criteria. But again, we can see all the work product, the conversations we've been having with her. The teacher can make a little note here to himself to say, oh, well, we better check the progress on Monday. We could send a message to Karina and see if she needs any help. Or we can just go by and help her, because one of the most powerful tools that we can do here is we can find out which kids need a little bit of help to attain their destination. And again, we go along here like so. We could see how Juniper is doing for this particular destination. This is the incredible strength of Edsby Destination. It lets us see and track the learning outcomes for every single student in every single class for every single subject. And that's the other thing that's really important here. Remember I said before that this teacher was teaching 2 different things. He was also teaching grade 6 science. If we were to go to that class, we see a different set of kids, and most importantly, we see a different set of destinations. That's because Edsby automatically aligns the framework for every single class with your local or state framework. Incredibly powerful, no busy work. Now, I want to do one more thing. I want to show you how this works for kids. Okay, so I've logged in as Mia Armstrong. I'll just go into my grade 4 math class right here, and you can see Destinations is a single click away. I can see what I'm learning right now. By clicking right here, you can see that I'm working on this particular learning destination. I can see I've met one of the 3 success criteria. I can scroll down, and of course I can go to my feed where I can see I can do things like a self-assessment. I could do a new self-assessment. I could submit evidence. I could reflect. All very easy. And the other thing is I have access to my upcoming learning destinations, as well as the learning destinations which I have already completed. So I can click right here like so, and you can see I can even see things like the evidence that I've captured. Incredibly easy for the student to use. Last but not least, let's talk a little bit about districts. As I said, we synchronize with your SIS. We integrate with your district single sign-on to make the deployment easy. And third, we take all the attainments that we've been showing here and we roll that information up into targeted dashboards for school and district administrators. We'll cover the dashboards in more detail in my next demo. Thanks for your time, and visit www.edsby.com/destinations and sign up to stay connected.